It's Saturday morning, and Mark is standing in his kitchen in pajama pants, holding a cup of coffee that's been sitting on the counter long enough to go lukewarm. The washing machine is running. His youngest is parked in front of the TV in the living room. And he's been staring at his phone for the last 10 minutes because a headline just told him the average American in their mid-40s is worth close to $1 million. Mark is 46. Mark is not worth $1 million. What Mark has is a 401k he tries not to look at too often, a mortgage with about 21 years left on it, and a Parent Plus loan statement he keeps moving from one counter to another without opening. And right now, he's doing exactly what tens of millions of Americans are doing this morning, trying to work out whether he's the problem or whether the number is. Here's the answer. The number is the problem. It's a statistical illusion, dressed up as a benchmark, designed in a way that makes most people feel like they're failing when they're actually not. But the real figure, that one has some issues too. And it comes with a timeline you need to understand. I'm going to show you exactly where the typical 50-year-old actually stands in 2026, with real numbers, no spin, and a clear picture of what you can still do about it. Let's get into it. The number that's messing with your head. The Federal Reserve's most recent data puts the average net worth of American households, headed by someone aged 45 to 54, at $975,800. Nearly $1 million. If you read that and immediately felt behind, you're not alone. That number lands hard. You're doing the responsible adult things, paying the mortgage, contributing to retirement, keeping the lights on, and $1 million feels like a completely different universe. But here's the thing. That average is one of the most misleading numbers in personal finance. The median net worth for the same age group is $247,200. That's a $728,600 gap between those two figures. And that gap is the entire story. Here's why it happens. When you calculate an average, you add up every single person's net worth and divide by the total count. The problem is that a small number of people at the very top of the wealth scale pull the average dramatically upward. Put a billionaire in a room with 100 ordinary people, and on paper, everyone in that room is a multi-millionaire. Mathematically accurate, practically meaningless. The median works differently. Line everyone up from the least wealthy to the most wealthy. Find the person standing exactly in the middle. That's your median. That's the real reference point. That's your actual neighbor, your coworker, the person in line behind you at the grocery store. And the median 46-year-old in America has a net worth of about $247,000. Not $1 million, not even close to $1 million, about 1/4 of that figure. Every time a financial publication runs a headline about the average American your age being nearly a millionaire, what they're actually showing you is a number that's been inflated roughly 4 times over by a thin slice of ultra-wealthy households at the top of the distribution. It's the billionaire in the room problem, published as though it's your personal benchmark. It isn't. What's your number? Before we go any further, I want you to do something a little uncomfortable. Pull out your phone right now. Open every financial account you have, your checking, your savings, your 401k or IRA, any brokerage accounts, and your home equity if you own. Add it all up. Then subtract every dollar you owe. The mortgage balance, car loans, credit cards, student loans, everything. Write that number down. Got it? Good. Hold on to it. Here's the actual distribution for Americans around age 45 in 2026. Bottom 25% under $48,000. Median, middle of the pack, around $247,000. Top 25%, approximately $680,000. Top 10%, around $1.4 million. Top 1%, $8.7 million or more. So wherever your number landed, that's your real position. Not relative to a statistical illusion inflated by billionaires, but relative to the actual population of people your age. Most people hear $247,000 and feel a small wave of relief. $250,000 is real money. That's not nothing. But here's what that number is actually made of. And this is where the picture gets uncomfortable. The illusion inside the number. For the typical American in their mid-40s, somewhere between 60 and 70% of their total net worth is locked inside their home. That's it. That's the financial foundation. Take the median $247,000 figure. Strip out roughly $160,000 in home equity. Equity that's been slowly building since they bought the place a decade or more ago. And what's left is around $87,000. That $87,000 is supposed to cover everything else. Retirement savings, emergency fund, investment accounts, college money, and any other financial cushion between this person and a genuine crisis. And here's the part that doesn't get said enough. Home equity is not liquid money. You cannot use home equity to pay your electric bill. You can't bring a deed to the grocery store. If you want to convert your home equity into actual spendable cash, you have three options. Sell the house and go buy a different one, which costs just as much. Refinance and extend your mortgage, adding years and closing costs. Or take out a home equity line of credit at around 9% interest, which is essentially a bank charging you a significant premium to access your own money. Strip home equity out of national net worth figures entirely, and the median collapses by roughly 70%. That $247,000 looks solid on paper. It doesn't feel solid when you're standing in a parking lot doing mental math about whether gas and groceries fit in the same week. And if you just did the math on your own number and realized most of it is sitting in your walls, welcome to a very large club. The retirement account reality. Now let's talk about the retirement savings picture, because this is where the numbers get genuinely uncomfortable. Fidelity, one of the largest retirement account managers in the country, publishes a widely referenced savings benchmark. By age 50, you should have approximately 6 times your annual salary already saved in retirement accounts. If you're earning around the median household income of $116,800, that means you should have roughly $700,000 in retirement savings by your 50th birthday. The actual median 401k balance for Americans aged 45 to 54, $60,763. Not $600,000, $60,000. That's not 6 times the median income. That's about half of 1 year's salary, roughly 10 times behind where the industry benchmark says you should be. And if you're thinking maybe people have other accounts that make up the gap IRAs, pensions, other vehicles, when you add all retirement savings together for this age group, the combined median is around $115,000. Still less than 1/6 of the $700,000 target. Perhaps most striking, approximately 38% of households in their mid-40s to mid-50s have essentially no retirement savings at all. Not a small balance, not a neglected account with a few $1,000s. Zero. More than 1 in 3 households at what should be peak earning years have not meaningfully started building retirement wealth. If that statistic hit you somewhere in the chest, that's the right reaction. And I'm going to tell you what to do about it. But first, there's one more piece of context that most coverage of this topic completely skips over. The decade that was stacked against them. Here is a fact you will almost never see in a financial news headline. Between 2019 and 2023, a 5-year stretch that included a global pandemic, the largest stock market boom in a generation, and the biggest housing price surge in decades, the 40 to 54 age group was the only age bracket in America to actually lose wealth in real inflation-adjusted terms. Every other generation gained ground. Adults under 40 saw their real wealth increase by 49%. Households over 70 gained 15%. The 40 to 54 group down 7%. Here's why that happened. If you were 30 in 2012, you had a full decade ahead of you, a decade of historically low mortgage rates, a surging stock market, and genuine opportunity to accumulate assets. If you were 65 in 2012, you already owned the house and held the portfolio. You just needed to stay in your seat while the tide came in. But if you were 35 in 2012, the timing was brutal. You just spent several years digging out from the 2008 financial crisis. Wages were barely recovering. Homeownership was still out of reach for most. And by the time you had enough saved to seriously consider buying somewhere around 2019 to 2021, home prices had already run up dramatically. The window to build wealth the easy way closed at exactly the moment this generation was supposed to walk through it. This is not a story of widespread financial irresponsibility. Today's 45-year-old is actually slightly wealthier than baby boomers were at the same age when you adjust for inflation. The problem isn't that they failed. The problem is that the conditions got significantly harder. And the benchmarks the financial industry kept publishing were written for a game that no longer exists. The debt side of the ledger. Any honest accounting of where the typical 45 to 50-year-old stands has to address what they owe, not just what they own. Gen X currently carries the highest total debt load of any generation in America. According to Experian data, the average Gen Xer holds approximately $158,000 in total debt, about 50% above the national average. They carry the highest average credit card balances of any age group at around $9,600, at interest rates now averaging above 21%. Let that sink in for a moment. The credit card balance is growing at a rate that outpaces most retirement account returns. They hold the largest auto loan balances, the biggest outstanding mortgage balances, the highest home equity line balances. And here's one that tends to surprise people. Roughly 1 in 10 Gen Xers is still making payments on student loans. Not always their own often. Parent, PLUS loans taken out to help children through college. Those loans currently carry an interest rate of around 9%, with a substantial origination fee on top. They can't be refinanced into lower rate products. Most forgiveness programs don't apply to them. They just sit there, compounding steadily, taken on by parents who are trying to give their kids the same opportunities their own parents provided. That unopened loan statement on Mark's counter, $31,000 at 9.08%. He borrowed it 3 years ago for his oldest. The interest alone is adding more than $230 a month to his balance, while his 401k sits at $62,000. And one more data point worth including. Approximately 44% of adults aged 50 to 64 are carrying some form of medical or dental debt. You're too young for Medicare, old enough for your body to start sending invoices, and the bills keep arriving regardless of what else is happening in your financial life. The sandwich years. There's a reason the generation currently in their mid-40s is sometimes referred to as the sandwich generation. According to Pew Research, 54% of Americans in their 40s are simultaneously supporting an aging parent and either raising children or providing financial assistance to an adult child. More than half, about 1 in 5, is managing all three at once, supporting minor children, helping an adult child financially, and coordinating or funding care for a parent. Mark is one of them. His mother is 73. 2 years ago, she started showing early signs of cognitive decline. Last year, there was an incident that made it clear she couldn't safely live alone anymore. She's now in a memory care facility that costs $6,200 a month. Medicare doesn't cover it. Mark and his sister divide the cost. His share is $1,400 a month money that used to go into his 401k. The average out-of-pocket expense for helping an aging parent runs over $7,200 per year, rising to more than $10,000 if it requires reducing work hours. Meanwhile, Mark's older son, the one the parent PLUS loan was for, moved back home 5 months ago when his lease ended. Mark isn't charging rent. The kid's bedroom still has the same posters from high school on the wall. About 47% of American parents provide ongoing financial support to an adult child. The average amount, around $1,400 a month, or roughly $16,600 a year. Add to that a younger child, still at home braces, extracurriculars, a phone plan, and the full cost of raising a child through age 18, currently estimated at over $320,000. And you start to understand what's actually happening here. When you see a 46-year-old with $62,000 in retirement savings and wonder why they haven't caught up, this is why. They're funding 3 generations of needs out of 1 household income. It is genuinely structurally difficult to maximize retirement contributions while simultaneously writing checks to memory care and covering living expenses for a young adult who's working on getting back on his feet. The inheritance you're counting on, that probably isn't coming. Here's something a lot of people in this age group don't say out loud, but quietly rely on in their mental financial plan. The great wealth transfer. You've heard the term. The projection that baby boomers will pass down roughly $84 trillion over the next 2 decades. The quiet reassurance, sitting somewhere in the back of the mind, I'm behind now, but eventually something will come. The data doesn't support that plan. About 32% of millennials and 38% of Gen Z expect to receive an inheritance. But only around 22% of boomers and a similar share of Gen Xers report planning to leave one. The expectations and the reality are dramatically misaligned. Nearly 2/3 of Gen X doesn't have an updated will, which means for many families, that distribution decision will be made by a probate court rather than a thoughtful estate plan. And of that $84 trillion in projected transfers, approximately 68% of it originates from households with more than $1 million in assets, which represents only about 7% of all households. The wealth transfer is real, but it is extraordinarily concentrated among families who already have significant resources. For the bottom half of the wealth distribution, the median inheritance amounts to approximately $9,700, not $97,000, not $970,000, $9,700. That's a used car with question marks under the hood. That is not a retirement strategy. It is not generational wealth. It's a number that, in many cases, will arrive after years of watching that potential inheritance get redirected toward end-of-life care costs. The average cost of end-of-life medical care runs approximately $137,000 per person. Retirement healthcare overall averages another $172,000. Before a single dollar leaves most estates, a substantial portion has already been consumed by nursing facilities and medical bills. Mark's mother is spending roughly $74,000 a year in her current facility. The house she planned to leave him is funding it. Every month she's there and she should be there, she needs to be there, the math changes. This is not anyone's failure. It's just the actual arithmetic of aging in America. Social Security timeline. One final piece of this picture, and it's the one most people prefer not to think about. The 2025 Social Security Trustees Report projects that the Old Age Trust Fund will be depleted by 2035. Not eliminated, depleted. What that means in practical terms is that incoming payroll taxes at that point would only be sufficient to cover approximately 77% of scheduled benefits. Without congressional action before that date, everyone receiving Social Security at that time would face an automatic reduction of roughly 23%. Now consider this. The first Gen Xers, those born in 1965, reached their full Social Security retirement age of 67 in 2032. They arrive at the finish line approximately 3 years before the system hits its projected funding wall. This isn't alarmism. It's the trustees' own projection. And roughly 77% of Gen X respondents in polling say they're concerned Social Security won't be fully available when they retire. Given the numbers, that concern is grounded in reality, not anxiety. Where Mark actually stands. Let's put the complete picture together. $247,000 in net worth, the majority of it in home equity, $62,000 in retirement savings, $158,000 in total debt, a mother in memory care, a son in the guest room, a daughter who still has years of childhood ahead of her, a spouse who hasn't brought up the vacation they keep rescheduling, an inheritance that's being consumed by legitimate care costs, and a Social Security benefit that may arrive reduced by nearly a quarter. That's not a portfolio. That's a math problem. But here's the thing about math problems. They have solutions. What you can actually do about it. You still have one asset that is extraordinarily difficult to replace. A roughly 20-year compounding window. Let's run real numbers. Say you're 45. You earn approximately the median household income around $117,000. You want to retire at 65 with enough to replace 80% of your pre-retirement income, which is about $93,600 a year. After accounting for Social Security, even with a 23% reduction factored in, you'd need your savings to generate approximately $70,000 annually. Using the standard 4% withdrawal rule, that requires roughly $1.7 million in retirement savings by age 65. If you're starting from the median $115,000 today, reaching $1.7 million in 20 years at a 7% average annual return requires saving somewhere between $2,700 and $3,200 per month. For a median income household already stretched across multiple financial obligations, That number may not be realistic without major structural changes. So let's talk about what is realistic. Saving $800 to $1,000 per month, beginning now at age 45, at a 7% average return, gets you to approximately $500,000 to $600,000 by age 65. Is that the retirement you imagined at 25? Probably not. Is the difference between real financial security and searching for the cheapest places to live on a fixed income at 72? Absolutely. The worst decision you can make at 45 is concluding it's too late and doing nothing. The compounding window is narrower than it was at 25 or 35. It is not closed. And it will stay open for approximately 20 more years, whether you use it or not. The Monday morning plan. Here's what Mark decides to do. Monday morning, before he's even changed out of his sweatpants, he opens the retirement app he's been avoiding. He bumps his 401k contribution from 6% to 10%. That's about $390 more per month, redirected automatically before it ever hits his checking account. He calls HR and sets up an automatic transfer of $300 a month into a Roth IRA. That's it. That's the complete plan. No complicated strategy, no major lifestyle overhaul, just $700 a month more going toward retirement automatically, consistently at a 7% average annual return over 20 years. That single Monday morning decision made before he finishes coffee is worth approximately $380,000 by the time he reaches retirement age. $380,000 from one conversation with his HR department. So where do you actually stand? If the number you wrote down earlier is above $247,000, you're ahead of at least half of all Americans your age. If it's above $680,000, you're in the top quarter. If it's under $48,000, you are not alone. About 1 in 4 people your age is right there with you. But here's the most important thing I want you to take away from this. The number you wrote down at the start of this video is not the number that defines your financial future. The number that matters is where you'll be in 2045 when some other person is standing in their kitchen on a Saturday morning reading a headline about the average 65-year-old trying to figure out if they're the failure or if the number is the typical person in their mid-40s today isn't failing. They're running a race that started before anyone told them it had begun, under conditions that got substantially harder right when it was their turn to compete. The race isn't over, but the finish line isn't going to wait forever.